are back. Hey, I'm John.
Hey, I'm Paul.
And this is What If Geeks again. So let's see. This should be dropping. Greetings from way in the past now. This is going to drop on the 5th of March, hopefully, if I don't screw it up again. Because Paul is going to be gone for a couple of weeks, so we're going to try to record at least one, and then I'll do some kind of voodoo and make up something for you guys by the time.
When you're hearing this, I'm in... Where am I? I'm in Seattle. I mean, they're in Seattle or Tallahassee.
Ooh.
From the future.
Enjoy the cold.
Yeah.
So we figured we'll just kind of crank another one out because we didn't have too many in the can because I screwed up and gave you guys a bonus episode. So now we got to kind of scramble a little bit.
You're welcome.
Yeah. You're welcome. I'm a putz. Welcome to my world. So since this is March 5th, Captain Marvel is about to drop. So we might as well roll through that real quick. I know we talked about it pretty much. We talked about the rumors and we beat up all the naysayers last episode. So all I can say is I'm really looking forward to this movie. I want to see how they set up Avengers Endgame.
Yep.
I truly believe that the naysayers are wrong and it's not just going to be a completely feminist movie. I hope they're not ramping her up so that she's like the end all for the entire 20 something movies we've been doing. You know what I mean?
Right.
I want it to be a team effort in Endgame, and it looks like it's going to be. Obviously, they haven't even remotely touched on her role in Endgame, but she's going to be there for something,
right?
Because she's strong enough to fight Thanos. So we'll leave that for when you get back in town. We'll talk about that one because then Endgame will be like right on the horizon. I just hope that this movie is not setting her up to be like the savior, like some of the naysayers are saying.
Like Superman is in the DC universe, like Justice League should be subtitled, "Hey, let's go wake up Superman."
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like some of those when Batman's like, "I gotta go to." Superman's like, done.
Right.
Did you strike fear in their hearts? I love those. Robot Chicken is great. Yeah, I hope they don't do that, but I don't think they're going to. I think she's going to be like on par with him, but because he's got the gauntlet, he'll be able to beat her ass a little bit. Again, because Paul and his Florida Man stories,
we don't condone that sort of thing.
And since I surprised,
as long as Thanos does not slap her with a bowl of chili,
we should be
or
okay.
hit her with a cookie.
Yeah, we should be all right. Oh my God. He uses the Infinity Gauntlet to hit her with a giant oatmeal raisin cookie. This already took a turn. So yeah, I look forward to what they're doing. Side note, the trailer dropped again. We were watching TV. I forget what we were watching on TV, but the trailer came on, and I was
the
like,
newest
hey,
one
Noah.
with the two suits.
Yeah,
the green and blue.
Yeah. And I was like, hey, Noah, look. He's like, cool, because he's seen the trailers, he knows, but he's not too familiar with her, because of the cartoons and stuff that he would watch back in the day. He doesn't know who she is too well. But I was like, she's the next one. And then Heather goes, so when does this take place? I was like, in the 90s, because I figured she's seen the damn the trailers, especially the first one when she drops into a friggin' blockbuster, just to show you that sometimes my wife does not pay attention or she just forgets stuff at random, which is a lot of fun as you get older. You just forget shit. I was like, it takes place like in the 90s. You watching the same thing I am?
Yeah. And
she goes, well, yeah, because Nick Fury looks younger. I said, yeah, and he's got both friggin' peepers.
Right.
She's like, I didn't even see that. Well, he did.
Right.
So, holy shit. I'm like, yeah, he had both eyes, honey. In fact, I was like, if you paid close attention to the first trailer, you look, there's a spot of him holding something to his eye real quick. So
right.
You're going to see how he loses the eye in this. This is when he does it. But it was just funny. She's like, he looks younger. I'm like, and he's got two eyes.
Yeah.
Really? You? And she loves these movies too, so she kills me sometimes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So all right, so we're looking forward to that, and now that will be. We can touch on this real quick. That will be like right immediately after Noah has his surgery.
Oh.
So Heather was already like, I don't know if he's going to be mobile, wanting to go to the movies or not. My son is having surgery. He's 7. One of his twins hasn't dropped, so to overshare like we normally do in this podcast. Yeah, one of the twins hasn't come down, so the doctors are going to go cowboy that thing down, lasso it down, whatever the hell they do. And yeah, so now that every male listening to this
has just grabbed their package
yeah,
and they're like, ooh.
Yeah, we've already got bags and bags of frozen peas, and my wife makes
poor kid.
great boo-boo bags.
Yeah.
It's just felt bags, flannel bags filled with rice, and you put them in the freezer, and they're great. Yeah. They're great for that kind of thing. So if you want one, hit me up, and I'll...
She made them for our kids, and Presley loves hers, and Coleman loves his. Coleman's is Batman, and Presley's is My Little Pony.
Yeah.
Presley can have any... She can bump into the counter, walking to the kitchen, and she will get her boob bag out.
Yeah.
And put it on.
Yeah, so
she just likes it.
I've got about 7 of these things in my freezer now, just in anticipation, because I know I'm going to be changing these, out on a regular. Just, over the shorts. But so they're cool. So if anyone's interested in a boo-boo bag, side note, hit me up and email me, and I'll put you in touch with my wife, and she'll show you the inventory that she's got. She can make you one.
There you go.
She crafts all kinds of shit, all kinds of cool shit. There you go. Now, there you go. We have an advertiser.
Right.
Brought to you by Happily Ever Crafting. So he's having surgery, and I'm taking off those couple of days, Thursday and Friday next week, to kind of hang out, because he's got to sit still. And Noah, he doesn't sit still.
He does not.
So I don't, they're going to give him the pain meds or whatever. He should be fine there, but he's just not going to want to sit. And okay, so we're gonna buy a couple of DVDs and not show him that we got them yet, so we can sit around and watch TV and play video games. And so he and I will be playing video games.
So it's between flag football seasons. So is he going to play the next season?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because he's got to have 2 to 3 weeks off of no strenuous running.
Yeah.
So that's why we timed it, because that is literally the Tuesday after the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Because yes, our kids are in the Super Bowl. Yay!
That's right. 7-year-old flag football Super Bowl is this Saturday.
Yep. So so it should be fun. I think we're gonna practice Thursday, and they got a really good chance. They came close last time, and this is the team that they tied. Yeah, this is gonna be a good game.
This is gonna be a good game.
So they're gonna do that, and then Tuesday he's gonna have a surgery, and then he's gonna be down for 2 to 3 weeks. So it's gonna be a pain in the ass, because it's just starting to get warm.
Not the ass.
Touche.
Around the corner.
Yeah, I was off by a few degrees. Hopefully the doctor won't be.
Right.
So
what are we doing again?
Yeah. I had that operation. Anyway, so we're going to be hanging out there. I took a long turn from whatever the hell we were talking about. The Captain Marvel movie.
Yeah, I don't know how we got from
we
Captain Marvel to that.
I took a really good tangent.
Noah's junk.
There you go. You see? Feminists.
If the doctor walks in like, hey, son, you here for your tonsillectomy? Run.
This is not the right doctor. I don't know how he got his degree. So what it started out with me saying, Heather had mentioned that depending on how mobile he feels, I may either be going by myself to go see this movie or, find somebody else. I was like, well, I can wait until the next week, or, I talk to you, find out what you were doing. So you'll be out of town, so we'll try to figure it out at some point.
I fly back on the 8th, on Friday the 8th. So
okay. All right. So then maybe if he's feeling, then maybe you and I will just go see it. That'd be cool. And then we can, there you go. Then we can just record a review, like bang. Then you'll get another episode for no reason. And we won't talk about testicles
too much.
We're going to come home from watching the quote-unquote biggest feminist movie in the world by the naysayers, and we're going to talk about testicles.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. So, all right, so Captain Marvel coming up. Looking forward to it. Can't wait. We are ramping into, oh my God, every movie is just like dropping.
Yeah. Between
this one and Pet Sematary is right around the corner. And I'm just like, I can't afford this shit. So yeah, I got a lot of movies to watch. So we wanted to cut this nice, happy episode for you guys. So we scrambled a little bit and came up with some stuff we've been kind of tossing around to talk about. A couple of quick articles that we read, and then we're going to get into some of the growing up in the 80s shit that we remember. And it's kind of winging it a little bit, so we'll just see how it goes. But one new show that everyone keeps telling me about, and you've actually at least seen a few episodes, is Umbrella Academy.
Yeah.
It's on Netflix, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, I've really got to get into this. Even my daughter, who watches NCIS and Grey's Anatomy reruns, watched this show, and she's like, "Oh, you need to watch this." So, what do you think so far?
I really like it. It's from a comic, but not a comic that I had read. But it's really, really well done. It is a group of kids that, as the premise starts out, one night in 1989, I think it is, a bunch of girls gave birth to babies, and they were not pregnant as that day started. Right. And these kids have abilities, and so they were this eccentric billionaire goes around and adopts as many of them as he can, and he ends up adopting 7 of them.
Okay, so Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie.
And so he sets up the school, and they and then it catches up with them. They at the time become famous, and then it catches up with them in their 30s as the eccentric billionaire dies. They come back together, and this group of people is the most dysfunctional, messed up group of people ever, because and this doesn't give too much stuff away. You can see some of this in the trailers that are on Netflix. He is the eccentric billionaire. They refer to him as their father. He is sort of unfeeling and incapable of loving them. He's all about work all the time. Mom is a robot that cares for them, and when they come back together, they've got issues. He didn't really give them names. They were just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Oh wow!
They gave themselves names at some point, but he didn't give them names. He was all about this mission of doing some stuff, and right. I am 3 episodes in, and I'm still. The show is evolving sort of slowly, but there's a lot of development of the characters so that you can kind of understand their particular dysfunctions and how this all works. I think season 1 is 10 episodes. I just finished episode 3, and the plot is unfolding. It's sort of slow, but I think you need it to kind of figure out who these people are, and we're just getting into some of their individual quirks, but it's really well acted. Ellen Page is in it. No one else I really recognize but Ellen Page. But so far, really well done.
All right, cool. Yeah, I definitely got to check it out. So maybe I'll watch some of it this coming weekend. Or maybe when he's asleep while I'm off work for 4 days, I'll
there you go.
binge watch it.
Right.
All right, yeah. So another show I just had you watch the trailer for that's coming out. I think you even said there should be one already out on the DC network.
Yeah, DC Universe streaming service. Doom Patrol.
Yeah. It
started on the 15th.
Really good.
So yeah, this Friday will be episode 2.
Yeah, now going back to when I was growing up, I remember seeing Doom Patrol on the periphery, I guess. Yeah, I didn't really... I never looked into any of their older comics or whatever, but I knew who they were. I knew of them. I was like, oh, okay, you know. A lot of comparisons are being made to, of course, X-Men, kind of stuff there. Kind of the whole professor in a wheelchair thing, you know.
Right.
Gathers a team, that kind of thing. Whatever. I don't know. There's always been some connection people like to make there, but it looks cool. The show looks really good.
Yeah.
The trailer looks really good. And then, like, you even commented when you were watching the trailer, I did the same thing. Like, oh, well, Brendan Fraser's
back, yeah.
He's like, okay, he's here. He plays Robot Man.
Yep.
So, that looked, I was like, oh, all right, you know what? I liked him in the stuff that I did see him in. And then he fell off the face of the earth and looked a little worse for wear. Yeah. Now, okay, he's back.
He looks rough.
Yeah, he still looks rough, but I mean, now it looks like he's going to be voice acting, so it's cool.
Yeah.
Again, you know, like I said, you know,
I'm sure
you understand you got a face for radio.
They'll do some stuff in flashbacks, I think, as they did in the trailer. But I remember Doom Patrol comics being out, and it's weird. It's kind of how they got Cyborg into the DC universe. Mm-hmm. It's also kind of how they got Beast Boy into the DC universe later on. He's not in the trailer, but he's a Doom Patroller at some point.
Probably because he's already in Titans.
Yeah, and then they both become part of Titans at some point too. Yeah. And so I don't know if it was they were introduced in Doom Patrol, but it's interesting to watch the trailer and see there's a modern these sorts of shows are really looking at this aspect of getting powers and what it would do to you and like how it would mess you up.
Yeah.
And it making a little bit more realistic in terms of, right, you get these powers or this thing happens to you and you're changed, and it's not just, okay, great, I get to go be a superhero and
right.
This
it's not
is awesome.
Like when we were growing up, the comics were like, oh, hey, I'm a superhero now.
Right.
Yeah, it's not like that.
Right. People would have problems with this.
They do a more modern day and a little more of a real world take on what this kind of scenario means.
Right.
Which is cool.
And I was just thinking about this. I mean, comics are made for kids, right? And they always have been. And they're written primarily... Now, there are some others that are written with a slightly older reader in mind, but by and large, comics are written for kids. Yeah. And kids are not here for this look at, sort of mental health and what it would do to you to have powers and all that. They're just here for the fight and the powers and the superheroes. And so, but you get when you make a show like this, you can make it for a slightly older, mature audience that would understand that you look at what, Robot Man, his brain has been put into a robot body. Right. Yeah. That's going to mess you up.
Yeah. You can't feel anything.
Right.
Touch.
Yeah. Like that's going to mess you up. The Crazy Jane gets powers, but has like multiple personality disorder because of trauma that happened when she was a kid, like awful stuff.
Yeah.
I don't even know how they dealt with that in the comic books.
I don't, because I never looked into it. So yeah. But again, now it looks good enough to make me curious to go to like the DC site and go check out their old stuff,
Yeah.
So yeah, it looks good. I'm looking forward to it. Again, I gotta steal your password and get on there. That I'm looking forward to. I know there was another show popping up, and I can't remember what it was. I'll think of it and I'll talk about it by myself, I guess. I'll talk to myself about it next week. But there's another one coming out that's similar. It's all in this vein. There's like a third one that's got like a team of kids or whatever, and it looks really good. So, you got all right. So, you mentioned it twice when we talked, and we didn't talk about it last show. So we'll talk about it now because I know we briefly beat up the Oscars because of their hate for Black Panther. I know it wasn't really hate. They gave him a couple of awards, but they didn't give him the award that we think they deserve.
Correct.
But the Oscars did have their one really cool moment, and everybody in the world realized that Chris Evans will forever and ever be Captain America because he, what did he do? He helped Regina King. I saw the video too because you mentioned it to me, and I was like, no, it was actually Regina King.
I think I said J-Lo, but yeah.
Yeah, I think he helped J-Lo or something. He did something for J-Lo. Like, no, it was Regina King. They called her up for her award, and her dress got snagged, and she was trying to like collect her dress up, and rather than have her fall on her face, Chris Evans came to he comes to the rescue. He goes over, offers her his hand, and walks her up to the stage like a gentleman. And again, it's those little moments like that that be human. This goes back to all the stuff we were making fun of last episode. Instead of being a self-centered shit, be a human being.
Right.
Be decent to each other, and the world will evolve in a good way instead of everyone screaming at each other like a bunch of assholes. There's your political part. So Chris Evans. I said. One meme that I saw, not a meme, but one response to that was a year or two ago. He did the same thing with Betty White.
Oh, yeah.
She won an award, her Lifetime Award. I think it was last year. And he ran over from across the aisle, and because he was sitting next to Regina King this time, he came across the aisle and took her, and he walked her up, Betty White, last year. So he's forever doing this.
He is forever Captain America.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry, don't ever recast him, Marvel. All right. So that being said, now for our impromptu show, let's see. Basically, we've got a handful of subjects that we kind of like randomly throw out there in the What If Geeks world, that or the culture that we like to talk about. And before anybody thinks that my Coke habit got out of control, I'm sniffing because I've got a cold since last weekend.
So your Coke habit is firmly in control.
Oh, it's
that's what you're saying.
Yeah, it's got a good handle on me. Ooh, a little Sprite and vodka. That's nice. Yeah, that's out of control.
Yeah.
The Coke is totally good. So we figured tonight we'll throw together a quick episode, just kind of talking about like how it was growing up in the 80s, like some of the cartoons and toys and stuff that we played with. It was kind of a vague idea I had, and we were trying to hammer it down, and we never really did. So we just kind of gonna run with it and see what happens, and hopefully it'll be something. Otherwise, you can just laugh at us and be like, whatever, it was nothing. I've got a vague idea. I kind of want to concentrate on like the central time when we grew up playing with toys and watching cartoons, and kind of how they intermingled with each other a lot. Because a lot of the times growing up in the 80s, you were just watching a 30-minute commercial for toys. And it became a thing where, I guess the government finally came in and regulated that shit a little bit. They were like, hey, you can't do this.
Yep.
And so they started putting those teaching moments.
Those little things at the end. Like, now you know.
Yeah, G.I. Joe and knowing is half the battle.
Right.
So He-Man would always come out and talk. Yeah. So, but to me, the other thing I wanted to do was compare it to kind of like the access that our kids have to shit nowadays. It's just ridiculous. To me, like those 80s cartoons, a few of the ones I'm going to touch on are like G.I. Joe, Transformers, Thundercats, He-Man, right? Even like the ones that were like He-Man and Thundercats and Transformers, G.I. Joe. Those were your essential, like, everybody knew them, everybody wanted the toys, right? Mm-hmm. You had the other ones that people were watching, like Voltron. Everyone was always, I like the Lions, I like the Cars, whatever. Watching Robotech or whatever, you kind of start to get out. Those four core ones, what I want to concentrate on mostly, something about them is different than the cartoons nowadays, where like even though it was a commercial, it was something, and I guess it was probably a lot of it's the nostalgia of being a kid and looking, it's a commercial for these toys and collecting the toys, but somehow those two going hand in hand made it more. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It was just something that was just different about being able to watch that stuff. Like when Noah watches cartoons now, like he would grow up watching Paw Patrol or whatever. He watches Justice League now, or whatever he's watching. I go to find him like a set of toys, and it wasn't like the 80s toys where like you had He-Man had the entire line of characters, or G.I. Joe had the, it's like you find them, but it's not like, because the cartoon was a commercial, mm-hmm. you had a dedicated toy line where like they were, okay, we're going to release this, and this. And then now it'd be like, all right, well, this company is going to make a toy line based on Paw Patrol because kids are going to want them, but we'll make this or that or this or that. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, did they make this guy or did they make that? Whatever. And I'm hunting for it. Where it just seemed like it all kind of meshed better back then.
Right.
You know what I mean?
What's interesting is thinking about them individually. So you think about G.I. Joe started as kind of a sort of a generic action figure for not quite our parents, but I think it was like mid to late 60s. They had G.I. Joe Action Soldier, right?
Yeah.
The 12 inch.
Yeah.
They had Action Soldier, Action Sailor, and he, there was an Army guy, there was a Navy guy, I think there was a Marine.
Yeah.
I think there was an Air Force. So you had just those 4 sort of generic, basic 4 action figures,
right?
And then I don't know that there was a story around the figure. It was just like, hey kids, here's a figure. You want to play Army Man? Play this. You want to play right? This was just what you were going to play with.
Yeah.
They didn't really have the wherewithal really to make kind of a G.I. Joe cartoon, right? I mean, they had the only cartoon, Bugs Bunny and that stuff was out, had been out for a while, but they weren't really making a ton of cartoons anymore.
Yeah, and they weren't making a backstory for this guy. It was just
right.
You emulate soldiers and sailors and whatever, so here's this guy.
Yeah.
And he's an astronaut.
Right, you can and then they made stuff for him, and different. He could be, like you said, he could be an astronaut. He could be a test pilot, whatever. And then Star Wars comes out, and that show on Netflix, The Toys That Made Us.
Yeah, oh, I love that.
I didn't realize that the deal that went into the making of He-Man. That when Star Wars comes out and they make the action figures from Star Wars, that it was Kenner that ended up winning the bid or whatever to make the action figures.
Because they went to Mattel first.
And Mattel said no.
Yeah.
Mattel was like, this thing's not going to make it.
Yeah.
And so...
You want us to make what?
Yeah. And then those action figures go crazy.
Yeah.
And I know everybody our age had a bunch of those.
Yeah.
Right? When Star Wars came out.
Oh my God, yeah. Now, here's how crazy it went, too. And side note, when we finally start playing around with the YouTube stuff, I'm going to show you some of the YouTube videos that I watch. I think you and I can parlay some of what we're doing into one of those little YouTube things where once we start playing around with some more video editing like what we were doing with the kids' channels, we could do our own shit on YouTube with that and then just stream it to this. But they talk about the same shit like this, and then we can like intersperse like old 80s commercials and whatever into there. It'll be a lot of fun. So stand by. You never know. I get bored and I get creative. I'm going to work for myself one day. The Star Wars, the first figures were so popular, and nobody, even Kenner, didn't know how popular they were going to be. They sent out that friggin' cardboard, you're going to get these figures.
Yeah.
Remember? I forget what, it was the holiday, we don't have the figures, so here's a piece of cardboard with a picture of all of them, and you're going to get these. It was like the pre-gift set. Like, your parents have already paid for the figures. And they didn't get them until like friggin' like 6 months later. Yeah. That was that nuts.
And this was, this is going to sound weird if you were young and listening to this, although if you're young and you're listening to this, I don't know what you're doing. But this was
cool and hip.
This was before Toys R Us, right? There were not toy stores.
No.
The way there were before Toys R Us closed. But like, I remember having to run around all over town to try to find these things.
Yeah.
And my parents finally just like, what are we, no, we're not going to 4 stores to look for, what? But yeah, you had to either be in a hobby store or something else that sold toys, because there weren't dedicated toy stores.
Because kids, remember, this is also way before the internet.
Yes.
You couldn't, there was no eBay. As far as what you do now, like when you look around shopping for stuff and you can see variants of stuff immediately. Yeah. Yeah, no, that was called a rumor.
Right.
Right. You heard a rumor of, the first one was the Boba Fett with the rocket launching thing, and that turned out to be true, and it got recalled because some idiot warhead kid swallowed a rocket. But there was one like Luke had a different colored lightsaber, and so everybody was looking for Luke with a different colored lightsaber and all kinds of shit. But yeah, Star Wars was the first one for me too that I can remember outside of the Army Men. I mean, the Toy Story, Army Men. Yeah, that's what we actually played with.
The bucket of Army Men.
Yeah. Army Men, and then Star Wars. I never had the bigger G.I. Joes. I remember having the equivalent Star Wars though. I had a Stormtrooper, and I had Chewbacca, and I had Obi-Wan. Yeah, and I think maybe we had Luke. I don't remember. I definitely know we had Chewbacca, Obi-Wan, and the Stormtrooper.
Yeah. And so Mattel was dying to try to get in on on some of this, and they realized they had messed up pretty badly by passing on Star Wars, and so they had to develop something, and what they came up with was ultimately He-Man, but then they realized they need a story to be able to tell stories.
Yeah.
With He-Man the character.
Do you remember the original sculpts? Did you see that on that
Yeah.
episode? Again, when we start doing YouTube, then we can start throwing those kind of pictures around. Where they had 3 different sculpts for He-Man. One was the barbarian-looking dude.
Yep.
One had like a tank head kind of thing, and the other one was like a jet or some weird shit like that. But yeah, because they had no idea what they wanted to do, but they wanted to do something.
And then when they agreed on He-Man, and then so in order to sort of create a line of figures, they needed a way to introduce all these characters, and so they made the cartoon.
Well, they made no, it was the comic first. They had a story and a comic first.
Is that right?
Because the initial He-Man story that they started, the concept that they came up with was, which is why in the original, like the mini comics, the very first few, they tell a story of He-Man being like a barbarian that leaves his village.
Right.
There's no Prince Adam. It's just He-Man. And you see, like, he talks to a sorceress type, and it looks like Teela, but she's green.
Right.
Remember Teela had, like, the toy had the snake thing around her head? That's what she looks like in that first comic.
Right.
She looks like that, but she's green. But then they still go into the whole Grayskull and Skeletor and all that shit. But there's no Prince Adam. He's just a barbarian that left, and she gives him this armor and a sword and, go whoop some ass or whatever.
Right.
So he goes to fight evil. It's when they jump on the cartoon that they start to introduce the Prince Adam, and then the sorceress becomes a sorceress with the feathers. And Teela suddenly doesn't have a snake thing. I don't know what the hell that was. Because the original figure actually said sorceress / Teela or something like that. It was like Teela / something. But it had to do with, like, she was supposed to represent the sorceress, and when you put that thing on her, she was like 2 different people.
Yeah.
Or I don't know what they were going for then, but they were basically going for what was in that comic because nobody was really talking to each other.
Right. And
then they started to flesh it out, which was actually ironic because in the cartoon, now that we get into the cartoons, if you remember, she never comes out and says it immediately, or she does and then she wipes her memory, but the sorceress is actually Teela's mother.
Right.
Do you remember that? No? You kind of look, you got a blank look at me. Yeah, the sorceress is Teela's mother.
Oh, funny.
So when I'm like, growing up, I remember the toy, and I was oh, well, that's kind of cool because, and then they came out with the regular sorceress toy, which was the bird woman looking thing. So, but yeah, in the cartoon, they touch on the fact that she's actually Teela's mother.
Oh, funny. I don't remember that.
I don't know if they actually said, because Man-at-Arms is her father, I don't know if they actually said that the two of them got it on, or if it's just like
implied.
Either they implied that they got it on, or that she had her daughter and Man-at-Arms adopted her to protect her, kind of thing, something like that. But I forget. So now I got to go back and watch He-Man.
Yeah,
I'm pissed my kid off. He's gonna be like, "What the hell is this 80s shit again?" I don't know. He liked Ninja Turtles, so whatever.
Yeah, but but in order to introduce the whole line of character, right? Everybody sort of makes an appearance on the cartoon. Yeah. In order to launch their action figure.
Yeah, and that was their thing. And then again, that's when the government was like, "Oh, we're not comfortable with this." So they're like, "All right, well, He-Man, tell them how violence isn't always the answer." Even though He-Man's like punching, technically never really hit anybody. He would pick them up and throw them.
Or they do that thing where, like, you see from the bad guy's POV of like the fist coming,
right,
and then it just goes.
Yeah, you see the little flash. You never see him hit him,
right?
So yeah. Much like G.I. Joe, where they all shoot lasers and nobody ever gets hit.
Nobody ever gets shot.
Side note to that, because we talked about the Wizard casting call last week. I grew up between the comics and cartoons and toys that I played with. I started reading Wizard magazine. They had a sister publication, Toy Fair, right, that would talk about toys. Perfect for this episode. Within that episode, or within each issue, they had Twisted Toy Fair Theater, and now randomly throughout there, they would have like little skits that they would do with the toys, right? But they always had Twisted Toy Fair Theater. And if you can get online and look this stuff up, you have to look it up because it's right in your sense of humor. You'll love it. Most of it was Mego toys and like it's centered around like Mego, how do you say it?
Oh yeah,
Mego Spidey, right?
Yep.
But he's like this snarky asshole who just wants to like sit on his couch and watch TV, right? And like basically he lives in like Barbie's dream house. It's just repainted, right? And it's always him, and then everybody else around him, and you'll see like the Green Goblin, this and that, whatever. And there is one where like Cobra is like living inside his wall like rats, right? And then like out of nowhere, like off panel, G.I. Joe comes in, and he's just standing there like, what the hell is going on?
Right.
And they start shooting, but the lasers in the panel are like all pointed up.
Oh,
right?
funny, right?
So Spidey goes, here, let me help you. And he pushes one of the guns down, and they shoot one of the Cobra soldiers, and they all stop. They're like, Carl, like, what are you doing? It was hilarious. So, so there you go, guys. Google
That's awesome.
Twisted Toy Fair Theater, and you're welcome. You will love that. It's right. It's amazing. The first time you ever see Mego Spidey is in the first issue of that thing, and they're talking about Star Wars toys, because like one of the the reboot of all the Star Wars toys back then started, and there were Jawas all over the different pages.
Oh yeah.
So in the magazine, Thor and Spider-Man are pretty much friends. They're almost roommates, right? He borrows Thor's hammer, and he's running around. Yeah. He's running around the magazine, squishing Jawas.
That's awesome.
It's freaking great.
That's great.
So yeah, I'm telling you, you gotta go find this shit. It's hilarious. But so the G.I. Joe, they never shoot each other. The violence in the 80s, guys, nothing.
Just like the
really
A-Team.
happened.
Remember the A-Team?
Yeah.
How many rounds did they expend in that show? No one ever got shot.
Real bullets too. Yeah. See, this is the shit we grew up with, guys. Violence was always the answer, and no one ever really got hurt.
Yeah. Except Daffy Duck.
Oh yeah.
Daffy Duck got his face shot off occasionally, and he would the bill would end up in the back of his head, and he'd spin it back around. Yeah.
But now, okay, so, another tangent. You go to all these things we would watch. People shooting at each other constantly. Now, granted, okay, I can almost understand the argument, but you'd have to be pretty much mental when they would say, all these violent things, whatever, are turning kids violent. I never once watched any of these things and thought, if I shoot somebody, nothing's going to happen.
Right.
So, no, that's just maybe you shouldn't have bred because your kid's a moron. But, because that was a big thing back when we were growing up, too. All our cartoons and TV shows were warping us into violent little a-holes.
Yeah.
And we didn't understand the consequences of our actions and blah, 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 and whatever. And no, none of that really ever. Oh, we'll get into that here in a little bit. But Dungeons and Dragons, the game.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Oh, everyone's going to die because they play Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
You can summon a demon. It's going to be the apocalypse. And I played that shit for years.
None of that happened. Yeah.
No. Couldn't even summon the right die. Never mind. So He-Man was the big one, and He-Man was a big one for me. It all kind of is a big blur to me. The 80s. You would think anything else would be a big blur because then I got older, but no. The 80s were a blur to me because it was everything all at once.
Mm-hmm.
It was all these cartoons, all these toys, playing football on the street. Like I've said before, I grew up in Staten Island on a semi-quiet street, so we'd be playing outside all day long. Either you playing with your toys outside, or for the 2.5 months of summer, you jump in the pool for a little while. We'd play sports out in the street. Ride bikes all over the place, and then you had all these toys and cartoons. Something I mentioned to you last time was when I wanted to talk about this was the big difference between now and then was like I can remember in the 80s, as soon as school let out, you get on that bus and you rush from the bus to get home because you knew exactly what the schedule was on TV, because they were afternoon and evening-ish cartoons, and then you had to eat dinner and do homework, whatever. But you had that little window of cartoons there right after school.
Yep.
And for me, I remember it was G.I. Joe and Transformers and He-Man were the big three then. So all of that stuff, like, I can't always say without doing some more research first. And when we do start getting in depth on each one, we'll do a little bit more research so we don't just like talk out of our ass all the time. Although that's what I typically do, and it seems to be amusing. I can't always tell which one came first. You know, kind of like a chicken and egg thing. I don't. Right. I remember Star Wars, like you said, like that was the first one I can remember, and I remember having all of it. And by the time Return of the Jedi came out, I literally had every damn figure. It was ridiculous. I don't remember if it was G.I. Joe and Transformers before He-Man, or they all kind of blend together for me.
They do too for me.
The G.I. Joe thing for me was slower, and then it became like huge. Like in the very beginning, I had a couple, but once I started reading the comics, then I lost my shit with that. We'll delve into G.I. Joe in a little bit because I really love the comics and stuff for that one. But the He-Man one that I wanted to touch on, since we've been talking about it, is it changed the game for me because of the scale of the figure.
Right.
It was just like, it was 5 inches ish compared to the 3.5.
Yeah.
5 or 6 inches. I forget how big they are.
We talking about He-Man?
He-Man.
Yeah. They were bigger figures, not just taller. They were wider. They were solid.
Yeah.
They were ridiculously, like, everybody was juicing steroids super hard. And they were just giant figures compared to tiny Star Wars figures.
Yeah. And looking back, I think I remember it then, like I noticed it then, but now I can appreciate it now. When you look at all the figures, you can see how they saved their money by using like the same mold.
Oh yeah.
You know, just recoloring a different mold,
yep.
You know. Clawful and Buzz-Off had the same hand, you know, and Skeletor and Zodak had the same feet and all.
Yep.
You know. It was a lot of the same shit, which is really cool. Because, all right, yeah, there you go. Now you save money and you just keep on.
Yeah.
Which is actually how you wind up coming up with a couple of the rando figures that are on people's collections or whatever, you know. So, and we'll get into that later on. You get the collector items that are, like, I never really got big into that shit.
Yeah. But so you can imagine, just thinking about this, you're talking about G.I. Joe, who came first. As He-Man starts to get popular, because G.I. Joe and Transformers, I think, are both made by Hasbro.
Yes.
I know G.I. Joe is. Yeah. I'm pretty sure Transformers is too.
Yes.
And so you can imagine, right? Kenner's got Star Wars. They're killing it. Mattel, who's always had Barbie, now has He-Man, and they're killing it. So Hasbro's like, well, we've got G.I. Joe. We need a cartoon because that's how we're selling toys now. So let's invent this world of G.I. Joe where there are, you know, this somehow we've combined the branches into one, you know, sort of secret
unit,
right? Yeah. Where you've got some Army guys and some Navy guys and a couple of Marines and a tank, you know, a couple of tank guys and some pilots and some scuba divers and some SEALs, and
everybody has a specialty, and that's all he does.
Yeah. But that's how we're going to sell the toys, right? And so now you develop this cartoon where this world of, right, Duke and Flint and Lady J, right? And you bring in all those, and you can sell all those figures, and Storm Shadow and that Snake Eyes, that whole thing.
Storm Shadow,
yeah.
Yep, Snake Eyes.
You got to invent
the Commando.
You got to invent the world in the cartoon so that you can come out with all the action figures.
Yeah. Now, I don't remember, and we'll have to dig this up. If anybody knows, in relation to the cartoon and the toys, when did Marvel start with the comic? Because G.I. Joe was my first big comic.
Right.
That's what opened my, like, I had like, you know, Archie, the little digests and whatever. But as far as collecting comics, G.I. Joe was my first one that I religiously collected every month.
Yeah.
I would do like a sporadically Spider-Man and Superman and whatever.
Yeah.
But G.I. Joe, because I was watching the cartoon, playing with the toys,
Right.
I realized it was a comic book, and that was huge for me because that told me the really in-depth backstories compared to what they did in the 30-minute cartoon. You know, it was really cool. That's where you learned. Okay, like in the initial runs, Snake Eyes was a commando,
right?
But then you start to learn that no, he was in Vietnam with Storm Shadow and Stalker,
right?
And got part of his face blown off, and then
that's why he's covered. Yeah,
that's why he's always covered. You learn all this.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert for like 30 years ago.
They did one called The Order of Battle, right? And it's got all the characters.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was 4 issues.
Yeah.
And they did another one with like the vehicles. No, that was part of the first floor.
Yeah.
Then they did.
It had the vehicles.
Later.
Yeah.
Like every couple of years they would do it.
Yeah.
Where you'd have like the first initial ones. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, my personality, those were my favorites.
Me too.
Because it had everybody's name and their backstory and a little bit about them, and like this one's proficient in all NATO rifles and all
and then you always had that little like this one loves to play chess.
Yeah.
What the hell does that have to do with it? Whatever. Okay.
Yeah. I like those two. DC did a set of those. It was Who's Who in the DC universe, right? And they went A to Z and they had everybody.
Marvel did it.
And Marvel did it too.
And and you're right. Back then when they would do it, they've gotten away from it now. They haven't done it in a while. But I used to love those.
Yeah.
I would run right out and buy them all.
It also had this thing. I know that Marvel's did. I'm pretty sure DC's did too. But it was like, they would have strength on a level of like 1 to 10.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And so you could sort of gauge like, oh, okay, so and so is relatively a little bit stronger than so and so.
Yeah, and they would do that with the powers. Like,
right. Yeah.
You'd have like the psionics are here, the strength is here. Their intelligence level, whatever. Because Transformers started that shit on the packaging. Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I guess we'll segue into Transformers. We're gonna kind of ebb and flow in all of these because they blur in our heads. Transformers, the toys on the back of the package, they had the same thing. They had a little description of who they were, and then they had the that red piece of plastic. Do you remember that? You would put it. It had a barcode, right? Or not a barcode, but it had a graph on the back that showed. Okay, so you had the description. All right, Bumblebee.
Yeah.
He's a scout, and blah 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 blah, whatever. They say all about his personality and how optimistic he is, whatever. Then on the bottom, it had strength, intelligence, this, that, whatever. And it had a red like grid and there was a blue line in there. You couldn't see it.
Yeah, you had to put the thing on. Yeah,
yeah. So you took that little piece of red film, you put it on there. You could see his stats.
Yeah, which
was now looking back like whatever. It was silly. But back in the day,
seems cool.
It was awesome. Yeah. It was like, oh, it's hidden, so so their enemies can't see it.
Yep.
Whatever. But yeah, back in the day, it was cool. So yeah, so they all did that kind of shit, and I used to love that stuff. Like, if you give me a readout, a ranking of powers and this and that, I love that kind of stuff. I live for that. I'd love to see them do it again. So yeah, so for me, the big one, He-Man. Oh god, He-Man. Those toys. After a while, they start to intermingle with each other. You start to play He-Man versus Transformers, whatever. But He-Man was a huge one for me. I can remember. My brother and I just like, when you're growing up with a sibling, my brother and I are only a year and a half ish apart, so we played together a lot. So our parents were like, for Christmas, what do you want together? Because we got to save money somewhere. So we'd have a small list for me, a small list for him, and then we would have like a ginormous friggin' list for both of us. And then my parents would kind of go accordingly. And most of like any of those action figures or whatever would be like for both of us. I can remember getting Castle Grayskull, and that was funny too. Because I'm pretty sure I still have like a converted VHS to DVD somewhere upstairs of my, my father had the first camera recording
giant
Christmas.
that shit,
the huge thing. Where you actually had to unplug the VHS to plug it to it. Yeah. He would record Christmas, so we have a handful of Christmases and that's cool. Just to look back on, but I can always remember that one time. It was funny as shit because my parents were of that generation where they kind of knew what we were talking about, but they didn't always kind of follow everything we were talking about. So if you remember the old commercial when Castle Grayskull came out, it was what's this? It's Castle Grayskull. And the kid pushes Beastman through, and he goes, "And it's mine."
Yeah.
Right? So we opened it, and I was like, "It's Castle Grayskull." My brother goes, "And it's mine." And you hear my mother in the background go, "What?"
No, it's both of yours.
We're both like, "It's ours. It's ours." Like, we caught on at like 6 and 7. Like, she doesn't understand what we're talking about. So like, it's ours. Like, it's ours. It's okay, Mom.
Yeah,
that shit was funny. I will never forget that moment in my life.
You can imagine though, your parents, like, you wrote down Castle Gray, and they're in the store like, he wants Castle Greyhead, Grey Face. What the hell is this?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh please. My parents would just look at us like, "What the hell did you ask me for?"
Yeah.
My father was a little more aware of it because he would, although he was a detective in Brooklyn, so he was never around. Like, when he was around, we watched TV or whatever. We watched movies. He'd want to sit down and watch the Yankees or watch football or whatever. But he'd see us playing, and he'd take us to go see Star Wars, or whatever. He'd take us to the movies, so he was at least aware of whatever. That was like his time with us, so he would see what we were doing. So he was kind of aware. My mother knew what we wanted, but she only knew because she would hear it on the TV when we were watching cartoons or whatever. Because she's in here like cooking and cleaning and doing whatever. Welcome to the 80s. My mother was off in another room, just like, "What are you doing? Don't kill each other."
Yeah.
My
mom would not have known the difference between Skeletor and Man at Arms. Like, it wouldn't. She wouldn't know one's good. Like, she'd just be like, "You want one of the? Which one? Oh, sure, whatever." Like, yeah. If I gave her a list and they didn't have, Skeletor, like they were out of Skeletor, but they had Man at Arms, she'd be like, "You're just gonna have to be okay with this one."
Yeah. So, which is a perfect segue. Again, we can, whenever you want to rotate back to something, just let me know. But because we mentioned the parents and not knowing what the hell's going on, perfect segue into Transformers. Because so you had Transformers when Hasbro went to Japan and pulled in all that Diaclone, all those guys, right? Again, hey, watch the Toys That Made Us until we come up with our own YouTube stuff, and then you can watch us. But go to Netflix and watch Toys That Made Us. It's really cool. You'll learn a lot. But Hasbro went over and got Transformers stuff from Diaclone and all those guys over there. Microman too. There was a couple of different lines that they combined to make Transformers, right? Parents not knowing what's going on, there were 2 robot lines in the 80s briefly at the same time. Transformers. And if you were the kid that didn't know what the hell, your parents didn't know what was going on,
you got to go by.
You got to go by.
Yeah. Finish.
Yeah. My mother, we got Optimus Prime and an ass ton of GoBots. I had every GoBot. And I think it was because it confused her because some of these smaller Transformers like Bumblebee, Cliffjumper, the camera dude on the Decepticons that was like 3-in-1,
right?
They were about the same size as the GoBots. So my mother bought us a whole bunch of GoBots too. Now, side note, at the time, I liked GoBots too because I was a relatively innocent, geeky kid. So I liked both of them. I didn't realize later how subpar GoBots was,
right?
Until later. But yeah, I had both. I had a lot of GoBots.
So I'm looking this up and on Wikipedia as we talk about this because I remember GoBots coming out, but I didn't know who made them. Tonka made them.
Yes. Tonka. It was Challenge of the GoBots.
Yeah, Challenge of the GoBots.
The Guardians versus the Renegades.
And so you can that somewhere there was some toy company clearly was Tonka. There was some meeting like, they're killing us with this. You two get in a room and figure this shit out, and go make me a knockoff.
Nope. Go back and see if you can find release dates for GoBots and Transformers. Because guess what?
They were first?
GoBots were first. I'm almost positive. Yep. Because it's one of those, while they came out first, Transformers did it better. And while you're doing that, I'll just keep bullshitting. Because, again, we're just on par with all this shit. All right, so Transformers come out. The cartoon, I definitely remember the cartoon and the toys at the same time in my life.
Yeah.
Transformers cartoon blew my mind. And again, to compare it now, there are so many different versions of Transformers. My older kids watched the Beast Wars for a little while, and I never really got into that with them. I was like, okay, that's cool, but and then they kind of tried to tie it into the Generation 1 stuff, and it didn't really work. But not for me anyway. But then they did newer Transformers cartoons because of the Michael Bay movies, and they did like Kitty Ear cartoons.
Right.
And Noah got into those a lot. Like he's got a bunch of little Transformers toys from that. He loves those. Not so much now because he's moved on to what's he into now? He's doing Yu-Gi-Oh! Holy shit! Cards and cartoon. Oh,
is that right?
Yeah. Yay. Between Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm like, you're just Japanese.
So this says that GoBots was a line of transforming robot toys produced by Tonka from 83 to 87, similar to Transformers. Blah, blah, blah. The GoBot toy line was based on figures produced by Poppy of Japan named Machine Robo.
Yep.
In other similarity to Transformers, Tonka decided to make the figures sentient robots rather than human pilot mecha as they had been in Japan, and divided them into two factions, the Good Guardians and Evil Renegades. And then the Wikipedia for Transformers...
84.
Yeah.
Yeah. So GoBots was first. 83?
Yeah. They just didn't do it. They must not have done it as well.
It was not good. Again, going back, looking at it as a kid, I legitimately was cheering for the GoBots to do good.
Right.
I thought it was going to be like right up there with Transformers. Probably mostly because that's what I had.
Right.
So like my friends would be like, no, Transformers is so much better. I'm like, I like GoBots.
Franchise began in 94.
Yeah, so
I always saw it as GoBots being sort of the cheap knockoff.
Yeah, and it was the other way around.
Yeah.
But in, I guess in a case of, whatever, they kind of like, they got annihilated by Transformers. Years later, and I haven't read them, but apparently Hasbro bought out Tonka's license for the GoBots and everything.
Yeah.
And they incorporated them into a couple of the storylines in the comics.
Oh, is that right?
But they were, it was one of those, the Transformers have repeatedly done a mirror kind of like Star Trek shit, right? Where good is bad and bad is good. They did something like that, and a handful of the GoBots disguised themselves as Transformers. Yeah. It's kind of,
yeah. It's fun. It's so interesting because I would have bet on I would have sworn on a stack of Bibles, or I would have put money Transformers were out first and GoBots were the knockoff.
Yeah,
because that's how I remember it.
And me too. To me, I remember them being out at the same time as far as toys go, but as far as release dates, I wouldn't have remembered. Only the fact that because of watching videos, or whatever, I remember that one statistic that I was like, really? So yeah, I'm gonna pause it 1 second, and then
we'll be right back.
We'll be right back if I can log in here. Now I gotta log back in just to pause so I can piss. I don't have a we'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Sorry, that's vodka and Sprite. I asked where we were, but we're all over the map. So we were talking about Transformers and GoBots.
Yep.
And then, so GoBots came out first. don't know. All of these toys really kind of like defined my entire my whole growing up period. It was the cartoons though that really spoke to me a lot. It was kind of like why I really wanted to do this episode was just the idea of running home to watch these cartoons, and I don't know. I know you were close to me in geographically, so I don't know what they were doing in Pennsylvania, right? At the time, but I can remember the shows like, let's say, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Thundercats, or I don't know, 3:30, 4:30, right? And then maybe like 5 o'clock, you might have He-Man, and then boom, you're into the news or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? So you had like a window, right?
Yeah, 4:30 was the last one that was going to be on.
Yeah.
Before, yeah.
So you would watch those, and then that'd be it. Before you left for school, there would be either like you'd have your Sesame Street or whatever, which also played after school, but you'd have a couple of cartoons started to roll in the mornings because the networks realized, hey, these kids are like up in the morning getting ready for school.
Yeah,
we'll throw out. You always knew it was kind of a death knell. Like it was going to be like the last couple of seasons of a show when they moved it to the morning.
Yep.
And this is going like you're talking like you're about 9, 10 maybe. So this is well before being an adult and watching a show and be like, oh, they just switched, time. What do you call it? They switched a time.
Yeah.
So it's probably not doing well here. So,
but you were going to get like maybe Looney Tunes in the morning, or you were going to get something like that. You weren't getting the cool stuff was afternoon. The morning stuff was kind of like
in New York.
You're getting the
after the Transformers movie,
like Popeye,
right?
You're getting like Popeye cartoons, or you're getting something like that.
Yeah,
like,
but
not something great.
After Transformers the movie, they did like a couple of seasons, and then the Transformers cartoon kind of went away.
Yeah,
right. That let's say if they did 3 seasons, 2 were in the afternoon, and then in New York, that last and final season was in the morning.
That's right.
Yeah, it was. I can remember trying to watch it before I had to go to school, and I couldn't always watch a full episode.
Yeah.
So I was missing. Cause I can vaguely remember watching like when they found Optimus Prime's corpse,
right?
And they brought it back to life in the cartoon or whatever, because that was a really good move when they killed him in the movie. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, I don't remember getting the good stuff before school. I remember getting like some. You'd watch it, but you're,
yeah, and it's just decisions of the network. Yeah, I can remember. Oh God. Yeah, my big things was after school, but let's see. I think we touched on all the toys. And we'll get more in depth in those later in other episodes because I really want to delve into some of the do you remember when this came out? Whatever. Yeah, get really geeky on some of this shit, especially when you people start talking to us, and then we figure out what you want to talk about too, fuckers. But I think the last afternoon cartoon that I remember watching, there was some here and there, but the last one I remember like dedicating myself to was Thundercats.
Oh yeah.
And that was a huge one.
It was one of my favorites.
Yeah, I loved it because it was, and that was, I guess that was kind of right around the end of me watching cartoons because it was the Transformers the movie, and that was when all of them decided to try to do it. But then they realized that Transformers the movie in the theater wasn't that great, so they released them on TV.
Right.
So you had G.I. Joe the movie, where they introduced Cobra La, which was interesting. And then you had Thundercats the movie where they introduced 3 new Thundercats.
Yep.
So then it became this whole thing. And I vaguely remember watching a few episodes after that. So it was kind of like it died off after that because I was busy growing up, I guess. But it happens. But I do always, I forget now because I'm an adult, but I would love to go back and see some of the shit that I missed.
Yep.
Trying to kind of fill in the gaps and try to figure out, did I see all of it or not?
Yeah, I've tried to on somewhere on the internet, and either on Roku or somewhere else, find all the original Thundercats. I'm sure they're on YouTube.
Yeah.
try to find, the original He-Mans, try to find the G.I. Joes.
And I'm getting better at looking for it online. For such a long time, I was such a physical media guy that if they weren't coming out with them, I was like, I was always looking.
Yeah.
So if I would see something, I would buy it. That's how Noah got the 80s Ninja Turtles cartoon,
Right.
which he actually thought was the current version for a good year.
Is that right?
Oh, when he was 3, they had the one that was on Nickelodeon or whatever the hell it was on.
Yeah.
Because now there's another one out now, but they had the one right before this one that was on that was really good too.
Yeah.
It was one that had Karai, Shredder / Splinter's daughter, and all that shit. He thought that was something else.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he thought it was like an older one because he had watched the 80s one.
Yeah.
He was like, "No, I want to watch the new one."
Those were good figures too. I mean, those action figures were pretty good.
Yeah.
The turtle one, yeah.
And again,
The first one.
Talk about your options for variants. They went all out with that shit.
Yeah.
Like I tried to I used to always love when they would actually come out with like a new specific mutant.
Right.
Again, I was big into the cartoon. I was kind of out of collecting toys at that point, but I had a much younger sister,
Right.
who was really into Ninja Turtles. She was so into Ninja Turtles as a kid that when she found out Noah was into Ninja Turtles at 3, when Heather brought him to New York to go visit my family while I was on deployment, my sister threw him a Ninja Turtle party and dressed my entire family in Ninja Turtle t-shirts.
Is that right?
Yeah, she made them all dress up.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, just for my son.
Yeah.
And he was 2 or 3 at the time, so barely speaking.
That's awesome.
She bought him a T-shirt, and she made my brother, who was 6'4". There's a picture of him on a couch in a Ninja Turtles T-shirt. He bought the one that's got just a shell, so it looks like he's a turtle, and then he's got a mask on,
Funny.
and he's sitting next to Noah with a mask, and
Right.
yeah,
That's
please,
awesome.
It was the whole thing. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So Ninja Turtles was a huge one. That's one that I really want to delve into later on another episode where we can get into the background of how serious it was before it became an 80s,
Yeah.
the comic book.
Mm-hmm.
We can get into the whole Eastman and Laird thing. That'd be a lot of fun. But yeah, that was the last one of the few cartoons I watched and didn't really collect too much of the toys because I was older.
Yeah.
But I would buy stuff from my sister. My sister had a lot of that shit.
Yeah, I had some of those. That's the period where I was buying them less to play with, more to hold on to. The X-Men figures, when they came out, they were the same way. Like the Series 1 with the sort of the original X-Men, and then you got into some of the others. But there was Wolverine in the brownish suit. There was Wolverine in the blue and gold. There was Wolverine in the
patch.
Yeah.
The black, whatever. Yeah.
Those I bought, and I did the thing. You buy 2 or 3, put them in a box, don't open them, don't have the card get bent.
Yeah. See, and we've had this conversation before. That's where you and I differ. You're that kind of nerd geek, and I'm the kind that just played with everything. And I was like, all right, fuck it, whatever.
Yeah.
I look back now. I'm like, God, even if I just saved it to give to him to Noah because of his love of toys, so much. I had so much stuff that it's just gone.
Yeah.
Not to collect, because again, like with my comics, I drive you crazy because I try to, but I just don't keep up with it. That's what I need to do. Is one day just spend a weekend with you. I'll go buy a whole bunch of backs and
boards and bags,
and you can help me straighten out my shit.
Yeah. I've got bins full of action figures that the back has gotten a little bent now, and I'm looking at them and I'm like, am I going to save these? Are they really worth something? They're not worth anything sitting in that plastic tub. So am I going to let Coleman play with them, or what are we going to do here? We're going to sell these? What's happening?
Might as well just let the kids get enjoyment out of them. Left and right are going to blow up the country before we're done anyway.
According to
hey, politics too.
According to that congresswoman from New York, we only have 12 years left. So,
oh God, AOC.
Yeah.
Ooh. All right, you know what? Yeah, we're not going to even open up that can of worms. We'll do that another day. When we do our special episodes where we don't talk about geek shit, we're like, yeah, let's open up the phone lines to anything. Then we'll start talking about, I got a can of whoop ass for that woman. All I'm going to say is she's an idiot. Anyway, so yeah, going back to 80s and shit, it was such a different time back then. Like, you know, kids now can just get on YouTube and look up anything. You know, watch Teen Titans Go on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Not even on TV, on YouTube. But it's funny because he's not necessarily watching an entire episode. He's watching like a 10-minute clip out of a 22-minute episode, and I'm like,
my kids were doing that today. Yeah. Just today. They're watching a compilation of Teen Titans Go where it's not the whole, it's snippets, and so they're like cutting a scene short to splice the thing together.
Yeah.
And
I know that a lot of that's got to do with keeping people from coming after them for not displaying the whole episode or whatever,
but it's hard to follow and it's not as funny.
Right.
And I'm sure Noah does this too. My kids, Coleman more than Presley. No, Presley watches videos of people playing with LOL dolls.
Yeah.
Like, they have the LOL dolls, and all you see is this woman's two fingers, and she makes them talk to each other. She can watch that all day long.
Yeah, no, we used to watch that a lot. There was a dude, and you'd only see his face once in a while. Like, he would talk to the camera to explain something. But otherwise, he was always playing with, like, the Teen Titans figures or Batman, Imagine X, all the Imagine X figures.
Yeah.
And, yeah, they all had... And now, to his credit, they all maintained the same personality from episode to episode or whatever, you know. If Batman was a smug asshole in this one, he was a smug asshole in the next one. You know, whatever. But, yeah, he would watch that all the time. Now he watches mostly cartoons and shit.
Coleman watches people play Minecraft or Roblox.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he would like to watch.
Yeah.
I don't know if that existed at our age, if we would have watched that. Or if we would have, I would rather play a video game than I would watch someone else play a video game.
Yeah. Yeah, because like, again, this is, you know, we grew up way pre-internet, so like we've had to learn all this shit as we got older. I just like, again, this goes back to like where they can look up anything they want. It was word of mouth. Like if you were playing a game, I heard you can do this. You know, the counter code. You remember that?
Yeah.
Playing video games, counter code. Up, down, left, right, select AB, start. Like, what the really?
Yeah.
Or AB, select, start. Sorry.
But you had
that was only for 2 players, sorry.
You had, but, like, if there's a group of you playing video games, right, there could be 4 or 5 people. You're playing a 2-player game, 2 controllers.
Trading off.
You know you're going to trade off. So at some point, yeah, you're watching, but you knew you're going to play at some point.
Yeah.
I don't understand the allure of Twitch, where I'm going to log in and I'm going to watch somebody play a video game. I'm going to watch other people in some other place play a video game, and I'm just going to sit and watch it.
Yeah.
As if it's a show, and try to, you know, watch all the explosions and all this stuff happen. It's different when you're playing it than it is you're just sitting there watching it. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I get that's not for me, but I don't understand the allure.
Yeah, I don't either, and I know Noah, for the most part, has gotten away from that. He will watch. He'll watch them play and stuff. But he's really into either watching the snippets of the cartoons, or he'll still watch, like, his FGTV, those family shows, and then he'll want to go do whatever they were doing, which is why he still loves his YouTube channel. His own, that he does rarely. But side note to the whole Florida Film Academy that he's been going to, that I've mentioned on here before, so I'm not losing you guys. His teacher now just asked me to send her his login for his YouTube stuff, because whatever he's doing in the class, she's going to take and put it on his YouTube. I'm like, all right, cool. So yeah, so she's like, yeah, send that to me because he's already got, so I got to send that with him next week. So he's been editing and doing whatever. He did like a try not to laugh challenge tonight. Don't know how that went, but yeah, he's been having fun. So he's learning whatever. He's learning editing. And I'm like, all right, well, you're 7 learning editing. Let's go, have fun. So yeah, so he's basically he takes it from a different he doesn't watch as much of the kids playing as he does something where he can do it himself.
Yeah.
He'll be like, oh, okay, now I'm going to go do this. Or he'll watch somebody, I don't know, he'll watch a Yu-Gi-Oh cartoon, and then he'd be like, I want to play Yu-Gi-Oh, and he gets his cards and bring them to me. So he's on that mode. I want to do a PSA real quick because, and it is actually serious. I haven't really delved into it too much, but it blew up my phone today, and since both of us have kids that are involved in YouTube and like to watch YouTube, I give you a heads up, and I give everybody else a heads up out there. You need to monitor everything that your kids are watching, even on the YouTube Kids. That, for the most part, we all YouTube is monitoring this. Yeah. Recently, there's been a rash of, and YouTube is trying to fight it, but there's been a rash of people sneaking stuff into shows that the kids are watching. So your kids are watching, you'll have to Google this later. I'll show you some of it before you leave. One, which is not verified by authorities, but one is called the Momo Challenge, and it's got to do with a Japanese statue that looks like a warped woman with a bird body, kind of weird shit. But it pops up on kids' stuff, and it tells them to do stuff and whatever. But the bottom line is, it's in the middle of like a cartoon they're watching, and all of a sudden, like, this little statue pops up, and it's like a Momo thing. That one started with the older kids because it had to do with like the WhatsApp app where you can text back and forth or whatever. So not really kids our age or our kids' age, but this thing was like, it would contact you and it would like send you messages and shit.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like really weird, and to the point of like slowly growing in almost like a Black Mirror episode where like the challenges it gave you were worse and worse and worse until you finally, it had you kill yourself.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So, and now again, that one, it's a huge story right now that it's just been blowing up all over my Facebook. But I looked into it, and it said it wasn't verified by the police. It's kind of one of those, like, it came from Venezuela, it came from this. The original Momo is from Japanese folklore or whatever, and then it goes, yeah, that one.
Oh.
Yeah, creepy looking bitch.
Yeah.
But so for that, I'm not sure how verified that is, but one that I do know is out there, and I know I took a real tangent on this side note here, but it's important that we get out there.
That's some scary shit.
Yeah, and when after Paul's gone, I'll sit here and when I do my little stuff on Facebook, I'll send out a whole link to all this shit. The second one that I know was out there, a woman found it in a video. I think it was her kid was watching a Minecraft video, and right smack in the middle of the video, this dude, and I'll go find it and I'll put it on our Facebook. So it's something like Filthy Fred or Filthy Frankie or Freaky Frankie or some shit like that, right? Mm-hmm. This asshole pops up on the screen, right? So now it's just like a camera, like right there, looking at him. He's standing there, and he says this little thing and pantomimes telling kids how to kill themselves. Like, he's like, across for attention,
right?
Down.
Oh wow.
So and he tells them how to slit their wrists properly.
Wow. And
then he says, "End it." Yeah, and that's right in the middle of a cartoon.
Yikes.
So yeah, even though, and again, I'm definitely not one of those helicopter parents, and I don't fault you if you want to be. I'm just not. I do, like, there's some really dumb people out there that just have, like Heather mentioned today, she's like, she said, I understand, and then she goes, well, no, I don't understand, but she goes, I get where, like, if a pedophile is on these things, talking to kids or whatever, she goes, I understand their logic, like you know what I mean? Like she doesn't understand it, but she gets what it's coming from, what their behavior is stemming from. Like they have a sickness that makes them go after kids. She's like, as far as this goes, there's some random idiot jumping on and telling the kids how to kill themselves. What is the compulsion there?
Right.
I was like, because the world sucks. There are just crazy people out there. So there's your PSA from What If Geeks. Watch what your kids are watching. Pay attention to what they're doing. We just had a conversation with Noah because we're not helicopter parents. We just said, he's smart too. I mean, know how smart your kid is. But Coleman's really, really smart. I know Presley's really tiny, but she blows my mind with half the shit that comes out of her mouth. So I know your kids are smart. Noah is smart enough to. We just said, look, there are bad people in the world. If you see something that doesn't look right while you're watching YouTube, pause it and either bring it to me or mommy, or if we're not here, if he's hanging out with you, with you and Coleman, whatever. Hand it to you, and Mr. Paul, look at this, and show an adult because then we can report it. So and that's it. Just tell your kids, show you the video so you can report it. But that's the only way you're gonna fight these guys because there's no way YouTube can keep up with all that shit.
Right.
But it's just a scary shit.
I read something today that 60 something years of video is uploaded to YouTube every day.
Yeah,
like the amount of time of video, like that's 60 years worth of time. A video is uploaded every day. How are they going to go through that? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and here we are just trying to get up somebody to listen to a fucking podcast. Right. Yeah, it's not working out very well. So that was sorry. I took a really big tangent on that one, but once we started talking about the kids with YouTube, I needed to put that out thank
there.
you. I had heard of that, and now I appreciate that.
And I'll definitely put it out on our Facebook page. During the weekend while you're gone too. Hey, there you go. I'll just have a grand old time. Right. To have a whole, hey, watch your kids. Come off like Mr. Rogers. Right. With a Sprite and vodka. So, all right. So we'll go back to, let's try to get a little joy out of this real quick. Yeah, right. So touching back to the 80s and growing up, God, I think the only thing I didn't mention, outside of, the big one would be Saturday morning cartoons. Yeah. Okay. The best. So, all right, yeah. this episode is just gonna, now, there you go. We just tormented you with Momo and the asshole Filthy Frankie, whatever the fuck his name is. You know what? If somebody knows him, shoot him. I'll buy you a 12-pack, I swear to God. Let me know when you do it, though. Just wing him. Clip him.
Just hurt him real bad. Yeah.
All right. So now we did that, and we bring it back with Saturday morning cartoons. Isn't that fun? There you go. Welcome to my mind. Right. Saturday morning cartoons. I can remember you wake up on a Saturday, and again, this is going to be so much better when we sit here and do a YouTube thing and start interspersing dumb shit. Yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun. I got big goals. You ready? You wake up on a Saturday, and it's funny too because this is like pre me even thinking of an alarm clock. I just knew, okay, this thing turns on this time, whatever. So I got to be up that time. Yep. And I don't know how I did it. I just knew to be up. Yeah, Well, and you're also sort of, you didn't realize at the time, but you've been trained to get up relatively early for school. So yeah. So I'd be up, and to their credit, they know, hey, most kids are up at about such time. Bing. Well, there you go. Hey. Yep. Took me 40 years. I just solved it. Some people are smart. All right. So they drop these cartoons on you. It would be about like from 8-ish in the morning. Yeah. 8 is around when they started. And it would roll right until about 11, almost noon. Yeah. But it was somewhere in that window, somewhere in 11 to noon. You may have a channel, if it had a good lineup, would roll into noon. And then they were done. Yeah. But that 4-ish hours, 3 to 4 hours, 8, 9, 10, 11, 3 to 4 hours, was huge. And you would have all kinds of stuff. I mean, you would start with like your Looney Tunes and Captain Caveman and Flintstones and all kinds of random shit. Like every year was different.
Yep.
And you remember they would have the I remember the fall lineup. Right before the fall lineup started, they would have the special. Each channel would have like a special to tell you what their lineup was going to be. And I can remember like a couple of them did them really good, like where they had all the characters showing up. Like they had like, I don't know, 2 kids, whatever popular child actors were from back then. Like Gary Coleman would pop up on like every friggin' thing. And you'd be talking to Smurfs and GoBots and whoever else. And it would like be a whole half-hour special to tell you what was coming up for that fall lineup. But we had like Smurfs and I watched everything, and now that I'm gonna be 44 next month, I'm man enough to say I watched random shit like Care Bears and shit because I had.
If it was on, you were just watching it.
I had
like
female cousins, and I was like, whatever. I was into it. It's cool. Yeah, I watched everything.
Yeah.
What were the big ones on Saturday? Like I said, Smurfs was a huge one. That was every Saturday.
Yeah.
And Smurfs was a really good cartoon. Not quite sure what the message was, but it was just a whole bunch of blue people running around like a man. It was an acid trip.
Smurfs. There was a period where Super Friends was part of that.
Yes, yeah.
Scooby-Doo.
Oh my God, Scooby-Doo. Duh, yeah. Scooby-Doo multiple times.
Fat Albert.
Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids.
Yeah.
That was before Cosby started roofing women.
Right. Might have been during it. We just had no idea.
No, it was during. It was definitely during. It was just nobody knew. He got busted much later. Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. Hey.
Yep.
Nah.
Oh, okay. So I googled because I was trying to remember what the lineup was like. ABC, 8 a.m., Tom and Jerry, Grape Ape, Mumbly.
Tom and Jerry, yeah.
Jabberjaw.
I remember Jabberjaw, yeah.
Scooby-Doo, Dynamite Hour, Sid and Mary Croft.
And some of these would fade in and out depending on...
Yeah.
And this here is like probably like either a bunch of different channels or it's one channel that you just kind of roll. Because
you only had 3 channels, right? You had 3 channels, and if you lived in a big enough city... There was that one UHF. You had a UHF channel.
But you would always go NBC, CBS, and ABC.
CBS had Sylvester and Tweety.
Yep.
Bugs Bunny Roadrunner.
Sylvester and Tweety.
Tarzan.
What was it?
Clue Club.
Thundar and the Barbarians.
Yeah.
That was Ookla and whatever the hell his name was.
Ookla the Mock. Yeah, he was
there
a Mock.
You go.
Yeah. NBC had Woody Woodpecker, Pink Panther.
Pink Panther.
Land of the Lost. I remember that.
And Land of the Lost was one of the last ones because it was a live action.
It was live action. Yeah.
Yeah, because it
was one of the Sid Mary Croft.
Right around the 11 to 12 range is when you started getting into still kids programming, but it was more live action stuff. Like
yeah.
You had that.
Shazam. Do you remember Shazam and ISIS?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shazam. Because then you also started getting into... we'll jump back to the cartoons in a second. But once you hit like the 11 to 12 o'clock, you got into like Shazam, Godzilla.
Yeah.
Godzilla.
With Godzuki?
Yep.
Yeah.
They
had that. At least it was like a research vessel, and they could call him if they needed him. Yeah.
For us, it was WPIX was 11. If anybody in Staten Island is listening to this right now, back in the 80s, was it WPIX was channel 11, I think. I think they were the ones that had Godzilla. Because each network had their own
each
set
network had
that
its
they
own.
paid for. So we had those guys were there.
Oh.
Abbott and Costello would pop up around like somewhere between 12 and 1. One of their movies would pop up.
Yeah.
It would always be like Abbott and Costello. Once in a while you get like Laurel and Hardy, Little Rascals.
Flintstones was on there, and then later like Pebbles and Bam Bam grew up.
Jetsons.
Big time. Here's some I sort of remember now that I couldn't have told you this, but now that I see it, Perils of Penelope Pitstop.
I don't remember that one. Okay.
She was a girl who would always end up getting tied up, and a bunch of guys would come along and help her out. The Inch High Gang, something like that. Grape Ape. Josie and the Pussycats.
Josie and the Pussycats.
Josie and the Pussycats, and then Josie and the Pussycats in Outer Space.
Yep.
Hong Kong Phooey.
Hong Kong Phooey. The Littles, because you just said little people.
Littles.
Remember the Littles? They were little people with tails. And that was another one where like I don't remember any specific episode. I just remember
Underdog.
loving the idea of it. Underdog.
Super Friends, Brady Kids.
There's an idea for a show later. Why the hell did we think this was going to be good? Like, remember the Happy Days cartoon?
Yeah.
That kind of shit. Let's tear apart some of these shows.
Do you remember my favorite was All-Star Laugh Olympics?
Yes.
It was like all the Hanna-Barbera cartoons. They had
they would intermingle.
The Scooby-Doobies, the Yogi Yahooies, and the Really Rottens.
It was Space Ghost Coast to Coast before that shit happened.
Yeah.
Like where they would all intermingle in the courtroom or whatever.
Yeah.
Or in the talk show.
They had all the Hanna-Barberas in like Olympic games, and they decided who would win. Yep. And the Really Rottens were like Dick Dastardly and Muttley and all the bad guys from all the cartoons.
You had the wacky races and shit. Yeah. I remember all that shit.
And then my favorite, Schoolhouse Rock.
Oh yeah,
Schoolhouse Rock. I know. Like we bought the Schoolhouse Rock because we homeschool our kid. We bought Schoolhouse Rock because it's today how I still know what like conjunctions are.
Conjunction. What's your function?
Adverbs.
You're welcome. I can't sing.
Adverbs. Adjective. All those songs. Those were amazing.
Yeah. The bill.
I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill, and I got as far as Capitol Hill. Yeah. Huh?
All right. So basically, Paul and I are doing like an acid flashback without the drugs.
Yep.
It's kind of like little shit's flashing in my head.
Yeah.
Like most people, I think when I talk to them, they seem to have like vivid, like a video playback type of memory. Mm-hmm. And my memory is almost always like still pictures. Most of them are kind of black and white too. I don't really remember a lot of shit. It just kind of like pops in there every once in a while.
Yeah.
It's like an old dirty box beaten up with a bunch of pictures that I go, I remember that. And then a whole reel will come to follow right after that. But yeah, I've got to find that initial, because none of these memories are good anymore.
Cartoon Network came out with a channel called Boomerang.
Yep.
And they started to have some of these. Yeah. But they're real, like, if I remember correctly, I think they were owned by like Hanna-Barbera, so they only really had the kind of the Hanna-Barbera stuff. But I was hoping it would be sort of Saturday morning cartoons, but kind of all day, and it just isn't. Yeah. It was never really that good.
Yep. And I just remember sitting there with a big ass bowl of cereal, or
you like sort of pour your own bowl because your parents weren't up yet.
Yeah. Or if your mother was up, those were the days where like my mother would be awake and she'd sit in the kitchen and like she had her TV and she'd watch whatever in there, whatever the hell shows were on for adults in the morning there. But she'd like make us breakfast. So once in a while, like once a month, we'd have breakfast with her. But we'd watch our TV and she, so she'd cook for us and make pancakes or French toast or whatever.
I got that bowl. I got a big ass bowl, and you're eating the sugary cereal. And you're drinking the sugar milk at the bottom.
Lucky Charms.
Yeah.
Which is funny. We just recently... Well, I didn't really have the conversation. Everybody else in my family did. One of my favorite cereals growing up was Lucky Charms. My son, Dan, is correct in his statement recently where it was like a bunch of stale marshmallows and stale cereal. He's like, I never saw the appeal of that. Like, you're right, but I don't have a sense of smell, so I think a lot of that's just dull anyway to me. So it was fun to me. My daughter saw an ad for a Lucky Charms beer, and she's like, I kind of want to try it. And I'm like, as much as I loved Lucky Charms growing up, and as much as I love beer now, new. Yeah. Like, I didn't. Not a thing I'm doing. There's nothing. There's no reason I want to look at that. Yeah. And then like my son jumped in there. He was like, "Why would you ever?" That's when he's like, "It's a stale." And then my wife jumped in there too. She was like, "I know what you mean." She's like, "I don't even like regular beer. I don't know why anybody would want this." And Yeah, it was just funny. They had like a little back and forth joking around about like how crappy it would taste, and I was like, oh wait, I kind of remember eating a lot of Lucky Charms, but yeah, I would whatever cereal was popular because we had all of them.
Yeah,
you know, you had C-3POs, anything they could market to us.
Yep.
But Frosted Flakes, Honeycombs. Honeycombs was a big one for me.
Honeycombs, yeah. Sugar Smacks.
Sugar Smacks. Yeah, Corn Pops.
Yep.
Please. Frosted Krispies. Oof. Yeah, see, you get out there random shit. But yeah, sit there with a big bowl of cereal, watch all these cartoons. And I remembered one of the last ones that would come on in New York was before you got into like, and I didn't get into the live action stuff until I got a little bit older. Like I would do like the Croft and whatever later. Land of the Lost. I like those, but like your Abbott and Costello and your like I liked Godzilla because it was a big monster. But then like when they would play like Abbott and Costello, like that's when like my mother would walk in and sit down and watch, and my brother and I would go out and play or whatever. But I would start to watch those as I got older. But the last cartoon I remember, and I'll wrap it up with this one, is Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Which was funny too, and we can get into this later with the whole marketing thing, because the LJN Dungeons and Dragons game itself and the toy line that followed had nothing to do with the cartoon.
Right.
The cartoon was based on the concept of Dungeons and Dragons, but they made specific characters. Mm-hmm. And for anyone who didn't ever see this, they had like 7 kids that basically went to a fair or a carnival, and it was a theme park, and they went on the Dungeons and Dragons ride, and they got warped into the world of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep.
So you had like your ranger who had an energy bow, and this guy and that guy, whatever.
Yeah, they had thief, barbarian, ranger, paladin, acrobat.
Yep. See? Yeah, 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah.
And then they had Uni the Unicorn.
Yeah.
And Dungeon Master would just come flying out of nowhere and just tell him some random shit, just enough to get him in trouble and then leave. But that one, I didn't realize it at the time. It was just a well-made show, right? But when you go back and then you look at some of the YouTube videos they do on it now, it was a lot more mature for what we were all watching at the time. Like they had like real stakes in it. Like they talked about like certain episodes would like really hit home with like one was the Unicorn Graveyard or something graveyard, where these kids actually contemplated killing Venger in order to get home because they had no other way to get home.
Right.
So, this show is like really going there, you know. It was ahead of its time for what it was doing, you know. And I do remember it ending before they actually resolved it.
Yeah, they never got home.
Yeah. But fast forward, I was in the Navy. So fast forward, you know, a good 10 years or whatever, and I'm in the Navy, and I got into reading fan fiction. So you go online, if you just Google fanfiction.net, there's anybody, you or I, could write a story based on Ghostbusters or Transformers or this or that, whatever, and upload it to this thing, you know? And a lot of people did. In fact, my oldest son is like addicted to reading fan fiction. He will read Harry Potter fan fiction no matter how garbage it is.
Is that right?
Yeah, oh yeah. He's all about fan fiction. And I get it, because it's cool. If you find a good story, I would find a few here and there that were good, and then I would lose them in the shuffle because I would go about the rest of my life and then come back and try to find them again and be like, what the hell was that thing called? And I'd never find it again. But 10 years after watching these cartoons, I was on this thing and I saw there's only a handful on this fanfiction.net. It's called, you look up Dungeons and Dragons, and there's one you can actually find, by reading this, I found a few Dungeons and Dragons fan fictions, right? One I found was, I forget what it was called. It was called After Requiem, and I was like, it's kind of weird. And I started reading the bylines on it, whatever, and the author wrote, hey, if you really liked the cartoon and you were disappointed by, you know, how it ended and you didn't see the end, the person who wrote, I forget his name, the person who wrote the episodes wrote an ending episode. It was called Requiem.
Oh.
And because they canceled everything, he released it as a screenplay. So it's out there for you to find.
Oh,
so I went and I found it.
Yeah.
And it says this whole thing about how they get home. And then you read this fan fiction called After Requiem. And obviously this was just straight fan fiction. It had nothing to do. But I'm going to look this shit up and I'll find out the author and I'll give him a kudos. He or she wrote an amazing piece. I mean, again, it's amateur shit, but it's really, really well written.
Right.
And it's literally like 10, 15 years later. These kids, like, what's his name? The Ranger. Not Bobby. Bobby's the kid. So
Eric. Eric is the paladin with the shield.
Right. So whoever the Ranger is, I forget. But it was him and Sheila, right? Yeah. They get together and they have kids. And right? And the acrobat, Sheila, not Sheila, the acrobat, the black girl, she's got a kid, right? It's After Requiem is their kids get sucked into the world of Dungeons and Dragons, right? And then so Dungeon Master isn't even there. They get approached by somebody, and he gives them their own set of weapons. Now the parents realize what happened to them, and they go back as their old ranger and thief and whatever. They go back in, get their old weapons, and go after.
Oh, that's fun. That's
crazy. And it's a really good story too. Really, really good story. So it's cool. But I think that was a nice long episode for something that we just kind of threw together.
I always I remember watching that, but I kind of remember like Paladin didn't have a weapon. All he had was a shield.
And I always thought that was stupid.
And I always thought that was weird. I was like, I kind of like this because I was into Dungeons and Dragons, but I'm like, why would you send him out there with no weapon? Like all he can do is like.
And I get like he was their shield, but at some point you have no offensive weapon at all.
Right.
And I know there were like a couple of times here and there that he would pick up a sword. Keep it.
Yeah. Right. You're gonna need that.
Just find a spot on your armor.
Sheila was the thief.
Diana.
She had the thing that went over
the
her
hood. And she would go disappear.
And Diana was the acrobat with the staff.
Yeah.
Hank was the ranger.
Yeah. So after Requiem, Hank and Sheila get together. And but again, Google fanfiction.net, and that is an amazing website to go to. It's funny because it breaks it down. You can look it up by whatever you want. X-Men cartoon, X-Men comic books, Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, whatever. It's got so many different things in there, and obviously shit that I never even looked at. I just find a couple of random ones, but I happened to find the Dungeons and Dragons, and there was only maybe 20 stories in there. So I was like, all right, let me see what this is about. And I checked that one out because I liked the cartoon. And I came upon that, and it was like one of those gems that you find. Yeah. That you're like, wow, it was really good. So, so I definitely recommend that to everybody. Go online. If you liked the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, find Requiem. When we get more into other shows, I'll find the writer of the show, and I'll drop his name for you. But find Requiem. It's a screenplay online, and then go to fanfiction.net. Find After Requiem. You will be disappointed.
Cool.
Yep. So all right. So that was basically the 80s.
Good talk.
Ish. Yeah. We kind of just rambled for. That was every once in a while when you and I just want to ramble, we can do it.
Yep.
So all right, we threw an extra episode in there, so that's good. Obviously, there's a lot more in there that we can break down little by little, and we will over time when we are looking for other episodes when we want to get into the shit. We'll get into each one. So you guys, those that grew up in the 80s, let us know what we might have forgotten. Let us know what we kind of brought back to your memory by talking about it. What your favorite parts, what your cartoons and stuff were, what it was like growing up where you were. And for those of you who didn't grow up in the 80s, there you go.
You missed it.
Yeah, you missed it. It was a good time. Tough shit. So hit us up. Let us know what you guys think. And we'll be at whatifgeeks@gmail.com.
Yep.
And Facebook.
Subscribe, review.
Please.
Yeah.
Hit
tell
us
your
up.
friends.
Tell your friends. Spread the word. Spread the geekery, and let's grow this thing so we can have more to talk about.
That's right.
Don't let it just be me and Paul figuring out what the hell we're talking about. All right, guys.
All right.
We'll catch you later.
See you.